We are starting with SmackDown, and last week, Paul Heyman's time with the Bloodline came to an end after he refused to acknowledge Solo Sikoa as the new tribal chief. Heyman has been at odds with the decisions of Solo, including bringing in new members into the group, and his act of defiance would cost the Hall of Famer dearly. An attack on Paul and a triple powerbomb would result in Heyman being hospitalized, and while we won't see him for a while, the Bloodline's actions may have consequences. According to sources in Creative, ideas being thrown around include a group being fined by Nick Aldis or even being indefinitely suspended from the show due to the attack. Of course, the Bloodline has little respect for authority, and breaching this suspension would only further exacerbate Aldis' issues with the group. As for now, it's unclear when Paul Heyman or indeed Roman Reigns will be back, but what do you make of this new Bloodline? Sound off in the comments. Now, this year's road to WrestleMania 40 was a roller coaster ride to say the least, and was documented by many cameras in the efforts of filming a documentary. Now fans have finally been able to see the WrestleMania 40 Behind the Curtain doc on YouTube, and in it, The Rock addressed the big changes that went on before the show. After winning the 2024 Men's Rumble, it seemed clear Cody Rhodes would challenge Roman Reigns until Rhodes seemingly stepped aside for The Rock on the February 2nd SmackDown. In the doc, Rock said that he felt the match between himself and Reigns would attract a broad audience, including those who don't typically watch WWE, but it also felt off. Rock said he felt uneasy about fans being upset about Rhodes being cast aside for him, and this discomfort went against how he had operated throughout his career. Facing a torrent of backlash from fans, WWE corrected course, and Rhodes reclaimed his spot as Reigns' rightful contender and triumphed over the tribal chief in Philly. On the doc, Rhodes said that The Rock should have been aware that fans would not have been happy with him losing his opportunity at WrestleMania to The Rock. In the end, things worked out for the best, and The Rock has vowed to return and come for Rhodes, and we'll have to see how things pan out for WrestleMania 41 next April. But what do you make of all this? Should WWE and The Rock have been smart enough to never even suggest Rhodes give up his spot? Sound off in the comments. On this week's Raw, Jey Uso and Chad Gable had an in-ring segment, but when the Wyatt Six arrived for Gable, main event Jey was nowhere to be seen. While some may have speculated that Jey had been whisked away, possibly to another dimension by the faction, the truth is far less out of this world. In a video shared online, it was revealed that Jey hid underneath the ring as the Wyatt Six took over the arena and came out once the dust had settled. In fact, during a commercial break, Jey asked the fans if the Wyatt Six were gone before welcoming them to Raw in a fun moment just for the crowd in Boston. Jey may have the Fireflies, but he's so far been able to escape the wrath of the Wyatt Six, but he may have to keep finding hiding places from the Dark Group in the coming weeks. Will Ospreay was coming off a big loss at Forbidden Door to Swerve Strickland when he appeared at AEW Beach Break and had a major announcement to make. Backstage, Ospreay met with Don Callis and was said that he was heartbroken after losing and needed to pursue his own path before asking Callis to release him from the family. Callis accepted Ospreay's request, allowing him to leave the faction. He hinted that Ospreay may owe him a favor in the future, adding an intriguing twist to Will's AEW journey. As Callis and Ospreay hugged at the end of their segment, Don told him that he will be a world champion someday, and many fans hope this win will come in Wembley Stadium at All In. With that said, Ospreay isn't part of the Owen Hart tournament, in which the men's winner will receive such an opportunity in London, so we'll have to see where he goes next. Have you been happy with the way Ospreay is booked, and do you think he'll find a way into a world title match at All In? Let us know in the comments. Dynamite's main event saw Daniel Garcia challenge Will Ospreay for the international title, with MJF in the corner of the challenger while Ospreay went it alone. Ospreay no-sold some of Garcia's offense to show he was 100% despite his brutal match with Swerve Strickland, and on the outside, MJF shouted encouragement to Garcia. When MJF offered Garcia his Dynamite Diamond ring to blindside Ospreay, Garcia turned it down but was met with a hidden blade by Ospreay, who retained his title. After the match, Ospreay showed respect to Garcia for a great fight, and MJF said it was his fault for costing him the match. He then raised his hand in front of the crowd. This was all a ruse though, as MJF low-blowed Garcia and attacked the star, and using his ring and hitting an avalanche piledriver resulted in Garcia being busted open. MJF continued his attack, which only ended when Ospreay came back out and stopped him, and MJF would hightail it to the back of the arena. The show ended with Garcia being stretchered away as MJF left through the crowd and will address the incident on Collision. What are your thoughts on MJF turning heel and brutally assaulting Daniel Garcia on AEW Beach Break? Sound off in the comments. Trademark news now, as when WWE files for a term, it often gives fans a hint as to what's coming on TV, and that may be the case with its latest filing. WWE recently secured a new trademark for the old WCW pay-per-view event Super Brawl, which was a staple of WCW programming from 1991 to 2001. The inaugural main event saw Ric Flair vs. Tatsumi Fujinami for the WCW and NWA World Heavyweight Championships, while the final show saw Scott Steiner face Kevin Nash in a retirement match for the WCW World Heavyweight title. It should be noted that WWE has already brought back old WCW pay-per-views, as they have featured Halloween Havoc, a WCW staple, as part of NXT's special shows. Could Super Brawl be the next WCW to receive a revamp, potentially as part of NXT? Give your take in the comments below. Speaking of NXT, Roxanne Perez was flanked by security during this week's show, but if you've seen wrestling security, you'll know these weren't real security. In fact, the pair of men seen flanking Jade were Vincent Winey, a NXT upstart who appears at live events, and Anthony Luke, who similarly made his debut a few months ago. Interestingly, Winey and Luke are the boyfriends of Cora Jade and Maxine Dupree, respectively, and we hope they're better boyfriends than they were security to the Prodigy. On this week's Raw, Zoey Stark qualified for the Women's Money in the Bank ladder match, but there are fans who question why she has the opportunity in Toronto. On Twitter, Stark reacted to the backlash, saying whether fans like it or not, she belongs in WWE and Money in the Bank, and used a Becky Lynch gif to make her point. That's ironic when you consider that Stark debuted on the main roster aiding Trish Stratus in her feud with Lynch, but now she's ready to stand alone, possibly with a briefcase in hand. More from Dynamite as Hangman Page finally returned to the show in his first appearance in 4 months, but it was clear from the start that something has changed in him. Page was the wildcard entrant in the Owen Hart Cup and faced Jeff Jarrett in the final quarterfinal match of the tournament. The Elite announced last week that the wildcard was their personal choice and someone who would bring the world title to the faction, which many thought would be Page. Hangman was never officially kicked out of the Elite, which made him a potential candidate, and a promo on Collision teased he'd be appearing very soon. Sure enough, this week's Dynamite saw him make his first appearance since Revolution in March, and a new theme and entrance video hinted at a much darker side to the Cowboy. This was also obvious in the way he acted during the match against Jarrett, as he was full of aggression against the veteran and was also toying with him. Even after hitting his Deadeye finisher, he did not go for the cover, which did give Jarrett an opportunity to recover, but it wouldn't be enough. Page went for a buckshot lariat and another Deadeye to seal the deal and help him advance to the semifinals for a match against Jay White in a perfectly structured match. This bout brought back Page as a vicious heel while building sympathy for Jarrett, who recently shared an emotional promo about being friends with Owen Hart. That promo touched so many people as Jarrett is still dealing with the death of his friend 25 years later, and when he locked Page in the sharpshooter, the crowd exploded in cheers. Double J tapped into something special and brought out some of the best work he has done in AEW for this bout, but it wasn't enough to earn him a spot in the semifinals. If you've liked what you've seen so far, consider hitting the like button. Mercedes Moné was at the show to celebrate her win at Forbidden Door, as she now holds the TBS title and the New Japan Strong Women's Championship. Prior to the show, it was announced that a celebration would take place, but Moné decided to steal the spotlight of another woman on the show, Britt Baker. Baker made her return to AEW programming at Forbidden Door in her first appearance in September of last year, where she faced then TBS champ Chris Statlander. On Dynamite, Baker revealed that her absence was down to several injuries, but added that she also suffered from a transient ischemic attack. In layman's terms, this was like a mini-stroke, and she asked AEW for some time off to deal with it, and she was granted as much time as she needed. Baker then revealed that she's been cleared by doctors and is ready to get back to business, and her first order of business is the self-proclaimed face of AEW, Mercedes Moné. Britt said Moné has been making this claim without actually working for it, but moments after her promo, a vehicle was seen pulling up to the arena and Moné stepped out. The double champion was congratulated by the Young Bucks, who said she's a CEO they approve of, a nod to the team's issues with AEW CEO Tony Khan. The pair then asked Mone to head to the ring for her double championship victory celebration, and the CEO was happy to do just that. Mone would come out to interrupt Baker and abruptly hold her double championship celebration, and the two exchanged some words in their first ever face-to-face meeting. Mone looked disgusted when the crowd chanted DMD instead of CEO, and the two traded some tense words and insults, but stopped short of coming to blows. With that said, Baker did issue a challenge for a match between them at All In, and it remains to be seen whether Tony Khan makes this official. This was a well-done segment to establish Baker as the babyface in this feud and bring her back into the fold and tease a match fans have been waiting to see for years. That being said, there was an audible "shut the f*** up" chant sent in Mone's direction, and we wonder if that was heel heat or go away heat for the double champion. Mone's confrontation with Baker wasn't the only notable face-to-face for her recently, as in her official newsletter, she confirmed reports she recently spoke with Shane McMahon. According to reports, the two bumped into each other at LaGuardia Airport on Monday morning as they headed to separate flights, though what they discussed is a mystery. But for Dynamite, do you think this segment did a good job, and what did you make of the rather un-PG chant sent the way of the CEO? Give your thoughts in the comments. In September 2023, Xia Li was released from WWE, and those on the roster at the time were upset, as the consensus was that she hadn't been given her fair opportunity. Now, Li has taken to Instagram and shared some photos at Jungle MMA, where various kinds of martial arts are taught and performed. The former WWE superstar revealed that she will be competing in MMA this month, but there's no word on who her first opponent will be. Li has competed in the martial art of Wushu, and so she will be using her skills once she competes in MMA, and we'll have to wait and see how she fares in mixed martial arts. But what do you make of Li's decision to join the world of MMA? And do you think she was released from WWE too soon? Give your thoughts in the comments. During a recent episode of SmackDown, Carmelo Hayes asked LA Knight why Logan Paul would want to face him, or at least that was the idea behind the segment. Instead, Hayes asked why LA would want to face LA Knight, a Botch the Megastar quickly spotted, and an unfortunate moment for the former NXT champion. Speaking to Shaq Wrestling, Hayes spoke of the botch and admitted that he didn't notice the error until it was pointed out to him. Hayes chalked up the mistake to the fact that he was looking at one person but thinking of someone else, and said people criticized him at the time. Carmelo added that Knight was quick to notice and pointed it out, but he accepted it as it was, recognizing that no one is perfect. He said, "I did it so quickly, not even thinking about it, I didn't even notice it. You know, you're looking at somebody and you're thinking of somebody else. I do it all the time. People were roasting me as if I'd made a huge mistake." Despite this, both Hayes and Knight will be in this weekend's Money in the Bank ladder match, and we'll have to see if either man stands tall in Toronto. Do you believe Hayes handled the botch well, and should Knight have brought it up at all on TV? Let us know in the comments down below. In recent weeks, Tommaso Ciampa has been obsessed with RKOing Randy Orton, but has failed in the past at the ringside area and in catering. Now the Blackheart has attempted a third time to hit the move out of nowhere on the Viper, and yet again, Ciampa has come up short. On Twitter, Johnny Gargano uploaded another video of Ciampa trying to hit the move, and this time, the Blackheart wore a disguise to try to get the jump on Orton. Ciampa failed in his attempt and he crashed on top of a storage container, while Orton simply ducked down to pick something up, avoiding the move in the process. On SmackDown, DIY will have a shot at the WWE Tag Team titles, and hopefully Ciampa will be able to focus on that and not Orton during the upcoming show. Earlier this year, Drew Gulak's time with WWE came to an end, shortly after claims were made against him regarding an incident between himself and Ronda Rousey. Rousey claimed that Gulak tugged on her sweatpants drawstring, which made her feel very uncomfortable, while Gulak said he accidentally caught the drawstring and apologized. On the NXT Heatwave press conference, Shawn Michaels is asked about recent departures, including Gable Steveson, before turning his attention to Gulak. According to Michaels, Drew's contract was the biggest factor in his time with WWE coming to an end, not the Rousey situation, as HBK explained. "From my understanding, nothing on anyone's part other than contracts being up, certainly in the place of Drew Gulak. From a company standpoint, there not being anything from a main roster standpoint that they were going to be using him in. In NXT, over the last 1.5 to 2 years, we've been trying to get into the process of keeping it fluid. It's all about getting to the main roster when everything is said and done. In 2 or 3 years, if that doesn't happen, we bring other people in or see if we're ready to move on." Michaels also spoke of Lola Vice, who will challenge NXT Women's Champion Roxanne Perez, despite some feeling she's very nearly ready for the main roster. Michaels noted that Vice possesses all the attributes needed to become a main roster star, but noted that she is still very new and young, and he likes to take his time with talent. Vice's main roster call-up is seemingly guaranteed, but the only question for her is whether she'll have a reign as NXT Women's Champion under her belt before that move happens. Do you believe Lola Vice will be ready for the main roster eventually, and if so, when do you think that'll be? Let us know in the comments section below. Last month, Dominik Dijakovic's time with WWE came to an abrupt end, and as he explained at the time, WWE made little to no effort to sign him to a new contract. Dijakovic's first run on the main roster was as part of Retribution, and when speaking to Pro Wrestling Bits, recalled a bizarre idea that could have only come from Vince McMahon. He explained that McMahon wanted Mia Yim, who was also with the group, to pretend to have an epileptic seizure, and this was presented to them by a writer or producer. It was clear that this messenger for McMahon was uncomfortable with the request, and Dijakovic and the others were shocked and questioned how this was seen as acceptable. Dijakovic added that he spoke about the incident with Pat Buck, who was a producer at the time, and was present when Vince pitched the idea that had the production team shocked. Everyone was taken aback, but for those in the meetings, it was impossible to challenge McMahon directly, as doing so could result in punishments, including being fired. Nobody wanted to lose their job, especially during the pandemic, as this was when Retribution was introduced, and instead, they cautiously suggested alternatives to the seizure idea. With that said, McMahon was adamant about the idea, and sure enough, Yim, as Reckoning, had a seizure that she later tried to explain away on Twitter as being possessed. Now both McMahon and Retribution are gone, but where does this stand in the annals of bad McMahon ideas? Give your thoughts on this angle down below. It was back at Double or Nothing that Chris Statlander and Stokely Hathaway betrayed Willow Nightingale, and since then, the trio have been involved in several confrontations. Willow Nightingale and Tom Nakano defeated Chris Statlander and Momo Watanabe at Forbidden Door, and now the bitter rivals met in singles action as part of the Owen Hart Women's Cup. On the Beach Break Dynamite, the two delivered a spectacular showdown in Chicago that had the fans on their feet, and the crowd was firmly in the corner of Nightingale. The crowd popped every time she came close to winning, but the final moment saw Statlander attempting to knock Nightingale with a steel chain in her hand. However, Nightingale moved out of the way and was able to roll Chris for the win and advance to the finals of the tournament for the second year in a row. During last week's Forbidden Door, Chris Jericho, Big Bill, and Jeff Cobb worked as a unit, but were unable to defeat the trio of Hook, Samoa Joe, and Katsuyori Shibata. On this week's Beach Break edition of Dynamite, Jericho vented his frustrations about the loss at Hook's father Taz and accused his fellow veteran of biased commentary. In a shocking move, Jericho leveraged his influence to have the EVPs, the Young Bucks, escort Taz out of the commentary booth, and Y2J took his place. This was for the trios match that saw Hook, Joe, and Shibata defeat the Cage of Agony in the latest development in Chris Jericho's feud with the group. But what did you make to Jericho having Taz ejected at the Beach Break Dynamite? And where do you see this feud going next? Let us know in the comments below. Mark Briscoe spoke about coming up short in Forbidden Door's TNT title match and revealed he'd be on Team AEW in Blood and Guts before Jack Perry attacked him. Perry ambushed Briscoe with the TNT title, and while Kyle O'Reilly tried to make the save, Kazuchika Okada hit him with a Rainmaker. The Acclaimed ran down to send the Elite packing, and the fans can expect the road to Blood and Guts to only get uglier from here. The semifinals of the Owen Hart's men's tournament saw Pac taking on Bryan Danielson in the opening match of Dynamite, in the first singles match between the two in about 15 years. With that in mind, the Chicago crowd was excited as the two began with a slow, methodical pace at first as they were feeling each other out and tried not to rush things. That didn't last forever as they eventually started trading stiff strikes and upped the intensity, with Pac having the upper hand as we went to a break. Danielson began building steam when we returned, and in the end, it was Danielson who got the win after trading submissions to advance to the finals, which will take place next week. They started a bit slower than expected, but still managed to make this one of the better TV matches you'll see all week. Hardly a surprise given the talent involved. And that was Dynamite Beach Break, and what did you think of the show? Let us know below, and as always, thanks for watching. WWE star breaks down in tears on live TV, shares heartbreaking story. Reason why Will Ospreay vs. Swerve Strickland took place at AEW Forbidden Door. Mercedes Moné addresses accusations of being an unsafe worker. If you'd like to know about this story and more, please check in the end screen here or click in the link in the description field. Thanks for watching.